What's good, YouTube? And welcome to the house. Today's video is going to be focusing the 2022 Megatins and how the prices have come in day one. I haven't been looking, although I did peek earlier in the AM when I woke up when the dogs had to go out, and I saw a lot of things cooling off. So we'll see if anything's been bought out throughout the day, how prices are going. But first, I want to shout out Ophidian Accessories. I've never bought a stitched playmat from them. I usually hate stitch mats. I think they usually look kind of ugly in the card bumps against how the borders go. But look at this. It's pretty much seamless. My finger just glazes right over it, and look at that cute little scapegoat. But I really like what they've done here. I usually hate stitched playmats, and it's only a $5 upgrade to go to it, and I think it's worth it with their website. They have the Warrior 2-player mat that I just showed. You got a light and a dark. A light and a dark, and that makes BLS the only answer on this playmat to this creepy anime eye take on Thousand Eyes Restrict that looks really nice. But again, I'm a Yu-Gi boomer, so I'm biased. Code What's Good 5 for 5% off, and to support the channel directly will make these cheap playmats even cheaper, and I do suggest going stitched after actually getting one in finally. Also, their Field Spell series is looking nice. I see Terraforming, I see Classics, I see Skyscraper, Legendary Ocean. It's kind of nice. I might spring for the one player unless you plan to be putting it on both players' fields, but it's kind of neat to kind of say, yeah, here's what I have planned for you, or, you know, with your hero setup, have the actual hero mat. I think these are really nice. Also, Stay Classy has a couple new field centers. Those nice metal and enamel, so cool field centers. The Tri-Brigade ones are looking pretty good, but they also have Change of Heart and Yada, and I love how Change of Heart is suddenly getting all this attention after being off the list. And look at the back with a certain duelist looking so freaking nice. Code What's Good 5 for 5% off and to support the channel directly also works here, making these field centers even cheaper. But enough of that. Let's get to the cards, John. I've been waiting to click this tab, and I'm so excited to see how things have settled out. Okay, this morning pot was in the 30s, and it's 44. DMG I expected to be a day one buyout. I've been telling you guys the OCG has been on that one. A bit weird to also see Droplet and Lightning Storm both above pre-sale prices. Looks like Blue Eyes might be dipping. Let's actually click on some of these and see how they are going versus available listings, lowest lister. Now that's pretty much lined up at 20, which versus the past few days is down, but not by much. Now, it does kind of say to my comparison that Dark Magician Girl is the Charizard of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Blue Eyes is the Pikachu as marketed, where Blue Eyes appears on a ton more stuff, but people really go after DMG. This is 2 wins for DMG in the short term, with Ghost from the Past 2 staying ahead, and now the Megatin version also staying ahead of the Blue Eyes. Very interesting. The waifu tax is real, but being the OG waifu, I really do think that Charizard Pikachu comparison for the TCG works out here. Ash Blossom lowest at 14 but low listings. The Secret Rare you could argue is the nicest looking version, but most people will put it in second versus the OG first edition. Sitting at 15 to 16 kind of makes sense, even with the common creeping up on it. Maybe that will help disperse some value, but the holographics are kind of staying up there. The common is just another common where this is a very shiny Secret Rare version of it. I thought it might dig its heels in the sand at 12, but it looks like it's going to be 15 instead here. And yeah, everything in these top ones are up except for the sealed. The sealed is down a little more, mayhap shipped to your front door than a couple days ago on TCG Player, down just a couple bucks. I imagine we'll see more listings because a lot of people doing that estimated value pull chop up, seeing people not pulling a prosp in an entire case, realizing that while you are more likely to see one in an entire case, it can happen to not be that way. I think Robbie did some spreadsheeted pull ratios from a vendor showing how variants can even go between 10 cases and the next 10 cases. I thought that was actually kind of a cool take on showing how the chop up in product can go if you're gambling even on a smaller large scale as a vendor, and a ton of people are going in at hundreds of cases on this being the flagship product. But yeah, these top cards all up. Red Eyes Black Dragon's a bit down from the buyout mode. If you didn't see, it got bought out the other day all the way up to like the lowest being 20. It looks like there's a lot of sales today in this range, and wow, look at how many pages of sales. Look at the actual demand crashing in. Here we get to go back that day where it is selling for 20. Wow, so the actual demand, even on the vanillas that are shorted, is there, and I think Red Eyes probably actually looks the best out of the three. We'll have to see how it ages, because out of Gold Series, it did age the worst out of the vanillas, right? Diviner at $10 is interesting. That's also above pre-sales. Red Eyes Dark Dragoon spiked once people heard it was half printed as well, and is far above pre-sale price also. Huh. Things are getting expensive. Pre-sales are scams, always scams. You'll never get a better deal. Like, you know those comments in the comment section, even though continuously about like 3 cards per set, and I tell you to shop 3 to 8 cards, make your guesses, and don't just go buy everything. This time, how many cards is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 above pre-sale prices before we start to get at and under. It's looking like Crossout, even though it's shorted, is down at around $7, $8. It looks like, but very low listing. So the demand on these singles versus the listings just aren't meeting it. And now we're starting to get to the 60s, 50s, 70s listing, people actually wanting to sell these cards, or maybe the demand not being there as much. Ecclesia was shorted as well in terms of being a half print, and being around $3, $3.54 is pretty darn nice to see, especially for the Sword Soul players. The demand might up for that as well, but we'll have to see how the listings go. When Mavens get here and the Sword Soul stuff actually gets reprinted, people will be trying to complete it then, and coming late to the party as always. A Luber, barely more expensive, despite being half printed than its Ultra counterpart. Pretty good deal on that coming on out. Ghost Ogre is 3 and under. That's good. I was hoping it would start out there. Ghost Spell having more demand in the format-dependent hand traps. It'll do that. Small World also getting a bit targeted here. It looks like compared to other cards on, there's just not the most listings. Earlier this morning, there was more listings and things were much cooler. Like, this was into the 30s. I want to say this is like 22. It's kind of a madhouse in here with the Megatin single. So on the front page, breaking down my thoughts, realistically, it looks like just not as much product is getting opened as usual, and in fact is even sinking down in price. Day one, if you remember the 2021 tens and the waves, it started spiking at first before coming on down. You had like a period where you could have sold these mega juiced in price, where this year it's just continuous. Okay, I can either try opening them and selling singles, or I could just sell this seal to make a little bit, is what feels like happening here. It's wild. It's so people, I feel like, even though it's a flagship product, it'll still be the most open product all year. As it comes down, like, people are still going to look at these prices and go, all right, there's 40, there's 28, there's 25, 25, I'm already over 100, and there's all these other top ends. Like, maybe it's worth trying to burn and turn and keep my calls. Depending on how this actually goes up, you should see some equilibrium in opening versus selling sealed. But yeah, Diviner, I didn't think would be, I thought this would fall to 5, but people do want 3 of her, and she fits into a lot of decks. Kind of weird seeing her as the single that would be comparative to Zeus last year as the more generic card, because Zeus is in so many extra decks, but like only if you're playing Xyz, and Diviner's in decks where you're doing, I guess, certain combos, and I guess there's also Drytron. Wow, this is kind of like crazy on the front page. Dark Ruler no more around $2. Underworld Goddess around $2. Branded Opening around 3. Heavenly Prison around 3, a staple for stun decks. Reminds me of Inspector Border. It'll probably start going up over time until you see another reprint for the stun players. Stun usually ages well as long as it's not reprinted into the ground, and Inspector Border got that other easy access reprint. Front page is very interesting. A lot of hand traps, which is good for the general player base. You had, Blazing Dumpster Fire, Lightning Underdrive, Yana Majesty, and then Burst of Destiny, which was supposed to give a ton of the value, but Sword Souls pulled out. And then all the injected value, but a ton of it being half printed. I'm going to have to, do the estimated value pull chop up to see how things actually kind of settled. Robbie's video did do a decent job of showing what you could expect of a experience of doing this. Now, on the second page, I will say the God card support, I think, will age somewhat well to be sold on Amazon rather than these kind of platforms. Amazon tends to sell these kind of cards the very best, so people tend to juice them on over there, which might mean they're slower. Is this one listing for real? Is this, okay, wow. Yeah, draw 6, bro. That's a little buyout happening right now. Or failed to be listed over here. Whoa, 6'9", nice on D-Shifter. That's another conversation. Ban list fears into this. A lot of people saying they're going to ban D-Shifter when it's coming into another product. Maybe semi-limit at best if you're copiuming, but selling it in 2 products and instantly putting it on the list? No, that's probably not going to happen in my mind, but we'll see what Konami has planned. They could semi-ash at some point after having sold it into the ground, but I wouldn't imagine it would be immediate either. I would think they'd wait a list or two. A lot of the new cards to the set doing okay. I've seen a lot of people trying to hype Rainbow Bridge of Salvation, but it's down here more towards bulk. It definitely looks like a good second page where there's tons of value that could age well. Like, remember N's getting reprinted and being pretty accessible, but then going up in price. If Artemis Slay does end up doing very well, Evil Twin Trouble Sunny could. There's a ton of misprints. There's a ton of different kind of value coming. I haven't seen a lot of damage on pulls yet, but I've seen name shifts. I've seen bolded text on the like double triple stamped names. I've seen insane hollow bleed from the EU pulls to where they almost look like starlights. I posted those on Twitter. So a ton of X factors happening with the 10s and people wanting it sealed. But my thoughts are going to wrap up like this. It's definitely an overexpensive day one, but the EVP chop up and reaction to shorts and halves aren't unexpected from vendors, but I didn't think it would be on this scale where people would be so timid to continue to open them. The big boys, of course, Gamer's Choice, Yu-Gi-Oh! Daily, Tier 0, they're going to be fulfilling their pre-orders at the lower prices that you did get them at versus this day one opening. And exactly what I said, but on a much larger scale than I said, seems to be happening where I figured there would be some buyouts on day one. It was cheaper earlier in the day. It could be natural demand reaching into playsets of certain cards versus the buyouts like DMG where there wouldn't be that natural demand. But I really think that this is a mix of vendors not opening as much as possible, but you'll have a ton of them. They got shows this weekend. They're going to go do something. They'll sit down in the office Monday, organize lists through Wednesday, and we'll see more listers hopefully on the market. But this is probably the saddest day one showing so far in an afternoon I've seen on a set like this. Like, last year I remember it being floodgates despite the upped price on the cases. And this year, this is way too many buyouts / upped prices early. It's kind of crazy. Thanks for watching today's Market Watch. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the more in-depth look at a set release. And maybe we'll do that more often. Kind of a madhouse. It really is.